Hi peeps, it's Zohra. I know I'm not in this video that you're about to watch. I'm actually behind the camera for it. I just wanted to do a little intro because this is from a couple of weeks ago when the lovely Nora, or the LECA Queen as you may know her, came to Canberra, to the shop to give a panel and a couple of workshops, and we just wanted to share the panel for those of you who couldn't be there in person. I've done a couple of edits just so that we could keep it nice and clean into the questions. I hope you enjoy the video. I wanted to say thank you, of course, to Nora for coming. It was such an amazing weekend, and we're so grateful and can't wait to do more with her in the future. But hope you guys enjoy.
I'm so excited because we're joined by the lovely Nora, the LECA Queen. I put some questions, but I don't like to follow the rules all the time, so okay. I might stray from a few of them, but we'll start with some of them that I wrote down, and then we'll stray from there. Okay, so Nora, first question I had for you is, when did you fall in love with plants?
I think I've always loved plants. I think it's just something that I've always loved to do, and without kind of knowing what I was doing. I mean, I remember taking care of plants when I was a little girl, maybe 10, 12. I'd always sort of, have something going, or maybe I'd be arranging flowers to take to church and stuff like that. So I've just, I guess, always been interested without knowing. And I think because, my mom would have like a pothos, in the corner somewhere, but she really wasn't into it. And I think if you kind of don't really have that guidance, or that this is what you can do with this kind of thing, you just kind of dabble here and there. But that came a bit later.
Do you remember when you finally feel like you were getting into plants, what your first plant was?
I can't remember what my first plant was, but I do remember propagating an African violet.
Oh, okay.
Knowing how to propagate an African violet at, 12 or whatever it was. Yeah. And I remember, this must have come from my mom or someone, I don't know. I remember specifically chopping off the leaf and getting a spice bottle, a little, once you've got the spices, an empty spice bottle, putting some aluminium foil on the top as a little stand and chucking it in there. I remember doing that at that age.
Now I feel like a late bloomer, not into my 30s until I got into plants.
Well, it's never too late.
Yes, you hear that? Okay, perfect. I know a bit about your story because I think I followed you for years. I imagine some people here probably followed you because you've been doing YouTube and social media for how long now?
Maybe YouTube 5, I think.
Yeah.
5 years.
That's a long time in social media. Most people last a year or two, and they're the passing fad.
It's very tiring.
But I want to hear, because I've always known you as the LECA Queen.
Yeah.
But I imagine before that, at some point, you had to discover the world of LECA. Yes. How did you discover this?
So I've always loved plants.
Yep.
But then, life, children, school, and it just never really, it wasn't something that I was doing. And then when we finally built our first home, I was like, okay, cool. I am now going to put plants everywhere. So I started collecting my plants. And my very first plant that I bought for that home was a fiddle leaf fig called Molly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is Molly with us today?
Molly actually was going to be in the book, but the editor canned Molly. Or maybe she is in the book. Maybe the story of Molly, I feel is in the book.
Do we need a volume 2?
But her photo was canned. But no, Molly is not here. And Molly,
thinking of you, Molly.
Yes. R.I.P. Molly. I think of Molly all the time. But Molly is the first plant I ever named. The first and last plant I ever named. No one else gets a name now.
Does anybody else do that? Do you still name your plants? Because I know a lot of you have more than a few, because you bought just a few from us. And I think it's a thing when you get into plants, you name
your
the first 2 or 3, because you're like, how cute, this is Susan. And then you stop when you get to 5, you're like, I'm not going to remember all these.
No. So Molly died, and then, okay, fine, whatever. Then I started, I got something else, and then I got a zebra plant.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Those are very notorious if you don't know what you're doing.
Someone just asked for one last week here at the shop, and I said, I'm so sorry, but I'm not a glutton for punishment, and I don't want them to die while they're here.
Yeah, so I got that, and then of course I got a calathea, and it's like, okay, things, I seem to be doing very badly at this. Everything is dying. Okay, clearly it's a me problem. I don't think it's a plant problem. Yep. It's definitely a me problem. I don't know what I'm doing. And I went where everyone goes when they're trying to learn what to do, social media. I went to Instagram and all these lovely pictures. What are these people doing? And then just slowly just started to get a bit more knowledgeable. Like, okay, all right, it's not just, you just don't just go to Bunnings and buy a plant. You have to do a few certain things. Great, great, great. And then I just went into it and things started going really well. And then COVID hit. Right. And actually, just before COVID hit, my husband actually even got me a grow tent. So I got my first grow tent. I had my plants. I was really doing the plant thing. It was going so well. COVID hit. And of course, I'm from Victoria. So we were at home a lot because we were locked down so much. And I had every hour to take care of my plants. It was just magical. It was just, all the plants were so healthy. They were so watered. It was beautiful. And then lockdown ended. And then you've seen those 3 people out there. Life had to go on, had to go to sports, had to go to this, had to go to that. I couldn't water as much as I was watering before. So especially with my Hoyas, my very, very small leafed Hoyas, the new leaves would come and instantly fall off. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? I'm not doing anything differently. Okay, yes, probably I am. I'm not watering as much as I was before. So it was, how do I regularize my watering? How do I make sure my plants are hydrated all the time? And that's when I stumbled into semi-hydro. And I thought, oh, this looks interesting. So I put the plant inside and all I have to do is fill that thing. And the rest is history.
Yeah, and here we are now, sitting right here, and now you're talking to people about it all the time. You've written a book.
Well, I mean, I am, which is why. So I started off actually. So people who followed me a very, 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 very long time ago when I started, I was called Roots, Leaves, Reeds. That's what I was called.
Because LECA was not part of the equation
no,
on day
LECA
one.
was not part of the equation from day one. So I was roots, leaves, read. So roots, leaves, plants. And then I love to read. So I would do little book reviews on my Instagram as well.
Yeah.
So little book reviews, plants, book reviews. Book reviews people did not like so much.
You know what? Sometimes you have to trial things to find out what's well received.
And I'm like, why don't you people like my books? I like them. No? All right, man.
I feel like there's space for that. You need a second channel. Just add to the pile.
Well, I know. And I was like, fine. You don't deserve my books. So I don't do book reviews on Instagram anymore. And then at that point is when I was really getting into the LECA space.
Yeah.
And that's when I changed my name to the LECA Queen.
Love. Okay. So I imagine most people here would know. Most people, by the way, if you haven't noticed, this is going to be on the podcast. This is going to be on the website. Hi, if you're watching this or listening to this digitally, sorry you could not come to Canberra and sit with us, but you are lost. But for those of you who may not know, what is LECA? I'm just throwing it around. You're throwing it around. What is LECA?
LECA is actually an acronym. Lightweight expanded clay aggregate.
There's a quiz later. I hope you remember that.
That's what it is. It's basically clay balls.
Yep.
That's what it is. And what they do is they go to there's actually clay pits, clay mines. They go, big machines, they mine the clay and they take that and put it in rotary kilns.
Okay.
And they turn it around, very, very high temperatures, turning it around. And that it literally like pops to create the little air pockets inside. Because that's what we want. And that's what differentiates LECA, which is lightweight expanded, and that's why the expanded comes, because with that popping, it's expansion, and so you get the air inside. That's what makes LECA different from a product called ceramsite, which is what a lot of people call mini LECA. It's usually the little colored balls. You might have seen those.
They're like rainbow sometimes.
Yes, rainbow colors. Yes, those ones. And that's not to say not all of them are expanded. Some of them might be expanded. And so they've taken LECA and they've just dyed it. But a lot of them actually are not. So when you pick it up, you can actually feel that it's a little bit heavier than a LECA ball because it's not expanded.
It's not like popcorn. It's like a kernel versus popcorn.
Yeah. Exactly. It hasn't popped. And so because of that, if people use that, their plants actually
they're not getting the benefit of the air.
No, it's not. No, it's not about the benefit of the air. Even your plant will actually probably die depending on the level in which where your roots are.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because LECA is working with capillary action, so those holes and that capillary action bringing that nutrient solution up. But there's no capillary action because it's
solid.
Popped.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so your plant sitting at the top there in that serum site, the nutrient at the bottom, nothing's going up.
So with LECA, essentially your plant is not sitting in the water, because I know that's something I see people make the biggest mistake. But
there's always caveats,
yeah.
you know. And so when you start and when you're telling a beginner, no, it doesn't sit in the water. So when you've just got your plant today, you do that transition. We're putting it a little bit higher up. And what tends to be thrown around a lot is a third, right? So this is your pot. You put LECA a third of the way up there. Then you put your plant. So your plant roots are not touching the nutrient solution.
Yep.
But then again, that also depends on whether you're doing the submerged method or the wick method. We can touch on that a little bit later. But what tends to happen is your plant starts to grow. The roots start to grow, and then they will grow down into the reservoir.
They find the water eventually.
Exactly, they'll find the water. And that's absolutely fine, because those roots are used to being in that environment.
Yep.
And it's fine.
All right. So I think you kind of led into my next question was, if you've never met somebody who's grown semi-hydro, because you're hosting workshops with us tomorrow, you're going to meet a few of those people. What would you say some of the biggest benefits are? Why? So this is your elevator pitch. Someone's like, why should I grow in LECA?
Why not? For me, I think it's the most. No, let me caveat it with this. Everything I say, I like to put caveats, because everything is on a spectrum, right? Everything is on a spectrum. Growing your plants in LECA, you can have it as simply as you want it. You know, you can do the most basic, or you can do the mostest. You know, you can have your pH meters, you can do your EC readings, you can do all of that stuff, or not. But if you're not doing that, it's one of the easiest ways of growing your plants. So all you've got is your plant in that LECA clay balls, and you've got your nutrient solution there. It's taking away the guesswork of watering. So you don't have to go there and start thinking, when did I water my plant last? Or was it last Saturday? Was it, I don't know. All right, I'm just going to stick my finger in there and figure out whether I need to do it. Or I'm going to get a moisture meter and see whether that moisture meter is telling me the truth. And a lot of people say that one of the biggest issues with taking care of indoor plants is overwatering or underwatering. People have a problem with knowing when and how. And semi-hydro takes all that away. You just put your nutrient solution in there and away you go. All you need to make sure is that there's something in there, because if you don't, then your plant risks dry rot, which is another thing. But it's so much easier to make sure there's something in a container than to start managing how the plant is actually taking that. So that's that. And then, of course, there's the lovely issue of fungus gnats.
Anybody here had those before?
Fungus gnats definitely become a thing of the past. For sure. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, I've got my plants growing in LECA, but I still have fungus gnats. And the first question I always ask them is, do you have some plants living in soil perchance? And more times than not, they will say yes. I'm like, well, maybe it's them. Or sometimes moss poles as well. They're notorious for fungus gnats as well. But if you are just purely solely growing your plants in LECA clay balls, fungus gnats are history.
Yeah. So it's literally, to me, like LECA, and the benefit of it is it's like you want to be able to take that 10 or 14-day holiday. LECA is going to be far more manageable, assuming your plant's a certain size.
Oh, you can certainly do that. I was just telling Zohra, 2 years ago, I went back home. I went to Zambia for 6 weeks. And I've got like all manner of plantage in my
jungle.
home. Yeah, 6 weeks. And before I left, I made sure everyone's reservoir was okay. Everybody's full. Good. I mixed up batches of nutrient solution. I had them in buckets, and I had a friend come over once. She came once, and I had one casualty.
And I'm going to assume that's like a less than 1% based on how many plants you have.
And it was like, okay, I know what happened here. It's not even that. So it's so easy to do that, and you probably wouldn't even need a friend to come over, for example. So if you've got your plants in a wick setup, right? So you've got the wick that's dangling into a reservoir. You can have a bigger reservoir as you need.
Yeah.
So you can go away for 2 months. But if your reservoir contains a nutrient solution, you don't need anybody to come around.
I'm so glad you bring that up, because this was something I think when I started dabbling in LECA a few years ago and trying to figure out what's reservoir, submerged, like I had always done submerged, but I obviously like when we even see suppliers offer us pots and they've got like the wick, and I'm like, what am I using this for? Because I'm like, isn't that hydro? Like, where would the LECA go? What is the difference between submerged versus a reservoir setup?
The whole thing of the reservoir is how you're managing it and how that plant is accessing the nutrient solution, right? So if you've got a submerged method is pretty self-explanatory, right? So if you've got, I'll just pretend that my hand is the cash pot. So the cash pot being the vessel in which you're putting your nutrient solution. So you've mixed your foliage focus or whatever it is you're using, and you've put it in that, right? And this is your plant that has the LECA, and that is sitting directly in there. So that LECA is directly touching that nutrient solution. That is the submerged method. So when you pick it up, it's do.
So really quick, with that method, we're relying on the LECA that is in the water to have that capillary action and take moisture
bring it up
itself. So the LECA is doing all the receiving and delivery of the water.
That's right. But if you're using a wick setup, before you put your plant up, you put a wick in. So your wick...
So you would have like a wick hanging out the bottom of your pot.
You've got a wick hanging at the bottom. And I like to have my wick sort of sitting in and amongst the LECA, sort of. So not strapped down at the bottom of the pot. So it just kind of sits in there. So as it's bringing up the nutrient solution, just spread the solution to a bit more LECA than just the one at the bottom.
Yep.
And then those wicks will be dangling into the reservoir. So the pot sits up there. So the pot is not in direct contact with that nutrient.
Yeah. Is there a method you find for beginners is like easier for them to just start testing out?
I find the submerged method is easier because then you're not having to get a self-watering pot which has got a wick, or you're not having to find wicking material and that kind of thing.
They buy a material that's not porous and it's not wicking.
Exactly. So this I find is the easiest. Just get it, and it can be as cheap as, because you're just getting a pot like this. And do you guys stock the plant liners?
That go inside.
You can either have a plant liner. Plant liner is what I find to be the cheapest. You can get a plant liner for like 80 cents or like $1.20. And I cover that with black tape. And that's...
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And that's the cheapest setup that I have in my home, literally. That...
With like a little plastic on the outside and you've just covered it?
Oh, no, I don't even cover that with plastic. The reservoir, the cash pot is what's going to be covered.
Yep.
And that. So altogether, that and that, probably less than $5 for the setup. Whereas if you're getting a self-watering pot, depending on what you're getting, I mean, if you're getting a lechuza pot, for example, you're talking about $40, $50 or something. So that method is a very easy one. But in here, I've seen you've got some lovely planters which are glazed on the inside and have no hole.
Yes.
So they make beautiful. So if you want your plants to look really nice, you can use them as cash pots. So you just put your nutrient solution in that and plonk your little pot there. And if it sits nice and flush, beautiful.
Yeah, that's always been my method whenever I've dabbled in when I've dabbled in LECA, because we are very much school of thought when it comes at Planti Peeps to cover pot, nursery pot. Like we don't plant in ceramic pots. I don't care if they have a hole. I don't care if they don't have a hole. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So we stock a wide range of pots that are fully sealed. So if somebody is shopping and they can find a pot that's sealed, I don't even think the ones with the plugs, because I'm like, what if the plug's not perfect?
The plugs are very problematic.
Yeah. Get one that's sealed. Double check that it's sealed on the inside. If you pour water in and you leave water there for 24 hours and it doesn't go anywhere, you probably know it's sealed.
Yeah, plugs are very... I don't like the ones. I don't know why they even bother with those silly plugs. They don't work half the time. And you just come back and your table's ruined because you thought,
Yeah, and same for the ones with the saucer. They're like, but we gave you a saucer. I'm like, that saucer can hold like 15 mils of water.
And it's porous as well, so it's all just seeping. Anyway, that's a story for another day.
Well, I love that these are all like beginner mistakes that we're sharing. So my next question for you, is you're going to go back in time to when you started dabbling in LECA. You get 5 minutes with Nora of that time. You can share 3 tips. What are the 3 things you're like, don't do this. Try this instead.
3 tips. Do not overthink it. Don't overthink it. And don't, just try it. I think that, I don't know if I can come up with 3, but just try it. You know, don't be scared, because, this one, yes. Don't get your most precious plant. I always like to say, people, don't get your most precious plant that you got from your grandma's funeral as your first plant to put in LECA clay balls. Just don't do that.
Or the expensive plant you won in an eBay auction.
Yes, no, don't do that.
Buy the $10 pothos.
Yes.
Learn and make mistakes.
Yes.
Kill the cheap plant.
Because at the end of the day, the only way you can know what to do is to do it yourself. I'm a very big believer in, yes, listen to what I'm saying and what everybody else is saying, but the conditions in your home are not the conditions in my home. I'll tell you to do something and you'll go off and you'll, oh, this didn't work. Or the water I have in Melbourne is not the water you've got in Canberra. So you might find that you're mixing the same foliage focus, but you're getting different results than what I'm getting. So you just have to go and try it. And the only way, with anything in life, the only way you get experience is by doing something and not hearing about it, but actually doing it. So I would just say, just go and do it.
Are there any plants, and I think we kind of already answered this, that you think are best suited for LECA, or any plants that you would say, like, don't put this in LECA?
I don't know the word don't.
And I can, yeah, again, your videos, sometimes I'm like you said, ZZ, or even Hoyas. I'm just like, Hoya? I'm like thinking about how they grow, and I'm like, you know what? Let me watch. I'm going to see.
You watch. Because the thing about semi-hydro is it's all about managing the reservoir. You have to understand the plant and manage the reservoir according to the plant. So you bring up a ZZ plant. I have a lot of ZZ plant content on my channel. I love a ZZ plant. All my ZZ plants are in semi-hydro and they are huge. Some of them have been in semi-hydro for over 5 years in semi-hydro, and actually even in a submerged setup, which is a bit strange. But I'll go back a little bit to the difference between a submerged setup and a wick setup, because that leads into your question. So when you've got a plant in a submerged setup, it's sitting in the nutrient solution, right? So clearly, compared to the LECA that's just being fed by a little wick, that LECA in there is probably going to be wetter, which is what it is.
Okay.
So when you've got a plant like a ZZ plant or a cactus, or, I saw what did I see?
You've got cactus in LECA?
Yeah, I saw you've got
we'll drop a link.
Epiphyllum curly Sue.
Yes.
My curly Sue has been living in LECA clay balls for ages. It's massive.
I need to go back and watch this.
Or we were talking earlier, you guys think I cheat. I don't cheat. Nothing is in
I tried
soil.
to get her to admit. I was like, you've probably got like 1 or 2 plants in soil. She was like, I don't.
I don't. Everything. So it's about understanding. So like a codex plant, an emerald something, codex plants like that.
Emerald
Plants,
forest or something like that. Yeah.
Plants like those, that they're retaining water. That's just what they do. So if you put a plant like that one in a submerged setup, that thing will probably burst, right?
Because it's just going to keep drinking because it's in that high moisture
exactly.
LECA.
So that's not going to work. So for a plant like that, I'm putting that in a wick setup.
Okay. So could we almost infer by what you're saying here, a wick setup might be for your plants that are not heavy drinkers because they maybe already have some functions that allow this plant to live in that environment?
That's right. Yeah.
That's a winner. I'm like, that's going to be on Instagram. We're soundbiting that one.
Yeah, so that's kind of how you're sort of working around that. And I'll do a little segue here and throw in pon or mineral substrates, because that's another thing. So I do use that as well. So some plants I've just found don't do as well in LECA clay balls. They'll grow, it's fine, but it just won't be living its best life. And I found that particularly with my Oxalis triangularis. Put it in LECA, it was fine, and then it was just like, what's going on with you? Everything's fine, reservoir. And I thought to myself, because LECA is, because of all the spaces, It's a bit drier.
It's
than pond.
really airy, where pond
Yes.
is much more compacted.
Yes, it's much more compact. And plants like that, thinner roots require more moisture. So a plant that requires more moisture around the roots, I find using a mineral substrate like pond or whoever is making. Lots of people. You make one. Do you make one?
Not yet, but pay attention. Keep an eye out.
Lots of people make stuff. Zeolite, pumice, mixed in with lava rock, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All sorts of recipes out there. I find that plants like that, putting them in a mixture like that, they do better.
It's almost like, think of it as like crushed LECA. You're like, it's LECA adjacent.
Well, in places like, Europe, America, there is such a thing called mini LECA. I can't find mini LECA in Australia. So LECA is normally, like 8 to 16 millimeters size, but you can get smaller ones.
Import opportunity. Zohra, we need to keep an eye out on our inbox.
Good luck with that. If you can bring a whole container, I'll be there. But yeah, so the smaller LECA, obviously, you're now bringing in your physics. So you've got more of them in a little space, less air around the roots, and that kind of works better, but can't get mini LECA. So I just use mineral substrates or pond.
All right, this is my selfish question. You can look to the camera and answer this because I need you to say this to the general public.
Okay.
Is there a benefit of putting LECA in your potting mix? And you can be honest, because I have a strong opinion on this, and I've shared it.
That's a trick question, actually. That's a trick question because I think it largely depends on what else is in your potting mix.
Yeah. So if they were adding it in and saying it was a great aerating ingredient.
I'll still go back to it depends on what else is in your potting mix.
Let's just say they're using just like a general potting mix, a bagged potting mix they might get somewhere from like a big box store.
Maybe, but
see? It's not feeling real definitive here.
Well, I don't know. I'd have questions.
Yeah, I always have questions to
Yeah.
these people when they come in and we're repotting for them, and I find LECA in their potting mix, and I'm like, did you run out of perlite? Did you not have anything else handy? Because to me, I'm like, LECA is LECA. Use LECA for how it functions so well.
I'd have questions, but then it's even broader questions of plant care.
Yes.
Like, what exactly was the reason why you thought putting the LECA in was going to be the thing to do? What's happening?
What was the end goal?
Plants?
Why did you do it?
Yeah, what was happening with your plants? Is there something else that was probably leading to the problems that you're seeing that you think could be solved by putting LECA in the potting mix? I don't know. Again, overwatering, underwatering, are those the issues that we're trying to solve? Questions.
I'm hearing there's not a consensus here, people. I would say stop.
We have
doing
questions.
Yeah,
That's what
we would need a follow up. We would need a follow up. Okay, my last question before we get into the little lightning round. I think it's really important because I feel like this is why we're here. You wrote a book. Congrats.
Thank
That's a
you.
big deal. So we obviously started stocking it here when we expanded our space in March. Tell us about the book. Why did you want to write it? Because obviously you have this plethora of online content, and the way people consume media these days is very much like they open their phone, they've got 4 seconds between meetings, and they're like, and then they're back to their normal life.
Yeah.
Where a book is really like a sit-down moment. But obviously you felt important enough to do it. And I can say, like, we've sold quite a few, and you guys are all here because you wanted to hear about it.
Well, I mean, what you said is the thing, right? There's only so much information you can consume in 4 seconds. I'm a very great believer in that, which is actually why I hate doing reels or shorts or any of that kind of stuff. Because every time I do something like that, it's the questions. So that's why I don't do things. I can't tell you how to use LECA in 20 seconds.
Yep.
This is why I don't do that.
There's a lot of pages here.
It's
a lot more than 20 seconds.
And so sometimes you just need to sit down and get the information. And going back to my origin and how I started caring for my plants, I realized that I just didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't have the information. I didn't have the knowledge. And once I started looking for the knowledge, acquiring the knowledge, is when you start thinking to yourself, oh, hang on. Yeah, no, putting my plant next to my TV because I think it looks pretty there is actually not helping the plant. And that's why that plant's not growing. It probably can't live there. I need to move it closer to the window. Yes, that messes up my decor. That's not the vision I had in my head. But if I want that plant to grow, I have to change and do something. But also, if I want that plant to grow, I must fertilize. And what am I using to fertilize? But also, if I want that plant to grow, I need to, I'm in Melbourne, it's winter. Do I need to get a grow light? What does it mean I need to get a grow light? So what does a plant need? And what am I willing to do as a person to give the plant what it needs?
And that would be 7 or 8 different videos you now have to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you could just sit and digest a book and go back and reference and look these things up.
Yeah, that's it. So my book, I mean, a lot of people who follow me, I don't want to say religiously, who watch my stuff now and again,
Yes.
they were like, oh, it's not a semi-hydro book. Everyone was expecting a semi-hydro book. So this was a bit like, oh, okay, that's different. But, and I'll be honest, this is, I've wanted to write a book, but this is not the book that I thought I would. Even I was surprised it wasn't a semi-hydro book. I wanted to write a semi-hydro book. But the lovely people at Affirm Press, literally, they slid into my DMs, quite literally, and said, would you like to write a book? And I was like, would I ever?
She's like, can I do a video review of it? And will people watch said review?
Exactly. And so they said, well, okay, listen, no. Yeah. We see what you're doing with the clay balls. It's very pretty, but that's not what we're looking for. We want something a bit more general, something that appeals to a lot more people, something that's a lot more basic. And I thought, okay. And they said, well, you can throw in one LECA chapter if you want. And I was like, fine, I'll take one. But it was good because I think, like, I really love the first chapter where I'm just really talking about understanding who you are, understanding what plants are, understanding what you are willing to do, and understanding that monstera that you're seeing on my Instagram feed, I'm doing lots of things to get it to look that way. And if you can't do that, you're probably not going to get that result. And you might be just happier getting a ZZ plant and being happy with that plant. Get what you can do and be happy with that. But if you want to level up, these are some of the other things that you can do to help you level up.
Finals, this or that. Let's do a quick lightning round. Monstera or philodendron? I know these are going to be tough because you're going to be like, that's going to vary. Nope. No, it can be very, we got to pick. Philodendron. Yep. All right. Aglaonema or alocasia?
That's a tough one.
I didn't say they'd be easy.
Oh, alocasia.
Okay. Anthurium or syngonium?
Oh, God, no. Syngonium.
Yeah. Take that, internet. Moss pole or trellis?
Trellis.
Low care. We love. All right. And then some favorites. I want to hear about some of your current favorites. What's one of your favorite plants at the moment? It can be something you own, something you want to get, something you just feel like everybody needs to hear about.
Favorite. Oh, wow. Do you know what's become a real good favorite of mine? A little Schefflera. I saw you got one.
Oh, the little umbrellas.
The little variegated ones.
Madame de Schmidt.
Yes. Madame de Schmidt. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Who else am I loving at the moment? Oh. I don't know. I mean, I've fallen back in love with my calatheas.
That takes a very special person. And I feel like semi-hydro is the way you fall in love with them.
My calathea orbifolias. I've got two now.
Oh, okay. I'll see you on that one.
Yes. I've got 2 calathea orbifolias that are just beautiful. I'm falling back in love with them.
Okay. I was going to say the other ones might be a bit tough for me. Plant food. Favorite plant food?
GT?
Growth Technologies. Shout out to the GT fam.
Yeah.
And then I want to hear, who else should these guys follow? Another plant fluencer. Anybody that you love following.
Oh
Anybody
my
that you
gosh.
still like, they drop a video and you're like,
okay, this is the one question that I'm like, oh.
Do you watch other plant fluencers?
Don't ask me that, Chris.
I did send her these last night. She was like, they're all great. Thanks.
It was the one question I thought, oh, shucks. Because is this going out?
I think it's okay if you stay in your own lane. Like, I definitely think some people get distracted by others.
The truth is, I don't consume plant content. I generally don't consume content in, I don't. I'll watch a TikTok here and there.
Yep.
But I'm not a I'm not a consumer of social media, or I can't watch a video. I cannot. That's just not who I am. It's not what I do. I read. I love to read. I can't watch stuff. And then because not too many people do semi-hydro as well.
Yeah.
What am I watching? I don't want to know about the potting mix and the this and the this, and then I just really just don't have the time.
Yeah, understandable. I don't know if you know this. Nora has a job too. Yes.
Yeah,
and 3 children and
yes,
a whole life.
Yes, and then the YouTube, the this, the that. I just really.
We had a chat about how busy it can be. Yeah.
Just don't have the time to consume content, and I think it's a good thing as well, really. Because then you start to, what they doing?
Yes.
Oh, I like that idea.
Put your blinders on.
Yeah, maybe I'll try that. Oh, but how come they're doing that? And then you start to compare, and you start to, So I think for maybe even just for my own mental health, I'm better off I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm happy with what I'm doing, and that's okay. Whoever's not happy with what I'm doing, that's fine. You can always scroll.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about the internet. And I can confidently say, I think what you're doing is working. So do you feel that way?
Well, look, I'm happy.
Good.
I'm happy. I mean, you could, I think everyone always wants to be bigger.
Yes.
Do more and, all that stuff. But I think for my life specifically, I'm at capacity. And quite honestly, it's still, I have so many pinch myself moments. I'm in Canberra. Like, what the heck?
We brought you to the bush capital of all places.
People sitting there. Like, what?
And we have 2 sold out workshops.
There's a book. So I'm still like, so yeah.
I'm like, are you happy? She's like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
If you're watching or listening to this, thank you. We're going to cut you off here and we're going to go spend time with people. Thank you.
Thank you.